Hello, and welcome to the first ever post-processing tutorial. And today I'm going to talk about dodging and burning. Dodging and burning is one of my favorite things to do. Uh, it's like you're selectively adding contrast to certain areas, and you can really bring out detail and really bring out contours in a person's face. And it's one of those things that really helps move your photography from one level to the next. So I've got this picture of the lovely Sarah. She is a model and makeup artist, and she did her own makeup and hair for this shoot. And so here's my finished photo, and here's without the dodging and burning. And so you can see that it really adds some contour to the cheeks and the jawline and the clavicles. Really helps bring out details that I really want to bring out, and it helps give a little bit more shine to the hair. And so I'm going to show you my technique for achieving this kind of look, and explain a little bit about what decisions I make and why. So first things first, start off with a good makeup artist. Makeup artists really do make a big difference in your post processing. And essentially, a makeup artist will do a lot of this kind of dodging and burning already for you. So they'll add contour to bring out the cheeks and minimize wrinkles, etc. So they'll do a lot of that work, and then basically, if you've got a good makeup artist, you're just enhancing their work in Photoshop rather than doing their work and then enhancing it. For the gear for this, I use a Intuos 4 Wacom tablet, which is one of these guys. But really any Wacom tablet is going to work great. There's nothing particularly special about the Intuos 4. It's just the one that I have. So anyway, let's start from the beginning. You really do need a tablet, though, of some kind. It doesn't necessarily have to be Wacom, but that's the one that's kind of the industry standard. So it's the most respected brand in the tablet world. But you can't really do this with a mouse. You just don't have the same level of control. So to start off, I create a new layer, and you go up to Edit, Fill, and you want to add a 50% gray layer. All right, and then you come up here and you change the blending mode to soft light. And then what you're doing is you're just grabbing a brush and a really really low flow. So I've got this airbrush checked on, and you want your flow set really low. I normally have it set in the 1 to 5 kind of range, because you really want the effect to go on very subtly, right? So I'll zoom in here, and you want to work in nice and tight. So right now I'm at 200% if you look down here. And I like to start with the highlights. I know some people like to start with the shadows, but I prefer to start with the highlights, and I generally start with the cheeks. So the idea here is that you're trying to lighten highlights and darken shadows. And so here on the cheek, you've got this nice big highlight, a triangular highlight right in this area. And so I generally will start right along this cheekbone. I'm just going to go back and forth a couple of times. See, now you're starting to see it right away. So I'm actually going to back up off that and drop my flow down to 1%. because you don't want it to show up that fast. So just come in here and start painting it in. And sometimes I can be heavy-handed and even 1% is too much, and so what I'll do is I'll drop my opacity. So the difference between flow and opacity is that flow means the longer you hold it down, the more will show up. Whereas opacity is just, it'll, if it's at 50% opacity, then you hold it down and the most it'll ever do is 50% opacity. Whereas if you have 100% opacity and 1% flow, it'll start off as very, very little amount of paint and build up to 100%. So we're going to continue here. And then other areas, so I use a really big brush for the cheeks because it's a big area. But I'm going to work on around the eyes now. So I really like to bring out this inner part of the eye. You can see that you've got a highlight here with shadows on either side. So still with the white brush, I go in and I bring that out. And then right on the eyelid up in here, I want to bring that out. And then I want to come into the eye itself and just come around this sort of middle area of the cornea. And then this upper part of the eyelid. And then for the upper eyelid, I come in here. So anywhere that you sort of see a highlight, you just kind of want to add a little bit of pop to it. And then up here above, right above the eyebrow, and then here along the nose, I'll make because I'm dealing with a slightly bigger area. I use the square bracket keys a lot. I'm a big fan of shortcuts. So I use the square bracket keys to make my brush size larger or smaller. And so I'll come over here, and then this cheek. I always like to start right along the cheekbone itself, and then work my way up into that sort of triangle that you get with the Rembrandt lighting. Now I'm sort of going a little bit overboard on this, just to kind of show you the concept. And we'll deal with my going overboard a little bit later. It's always good to go a little bit farther, and then you can adjust your opacity of that layer. So, and then I'll drop down to the lips, and I like to go just around the top of the lips, just a little bit, just to bring that out a little bit. In this case, she's got a piercing here, so it's always nice to bring that out. And then on the lower lip, I like to hit this sort of bright highlighty area. I don't really know what it's called. And then you can come down here on the chin. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And then the jawline down here. You can do a little bit heavier down here, but don't get too much up towards the ear. All right? And then let's also get this hair highlight. You really want to bring that out. And so just to show you what is actually happening to your layer, so you can see I'm working on this soft light layer on this gray. So what you can actually see is if you turn this to normal, this is what I've actually done so far. Right? So I'll turn it back to soft light. I'm going to bring this. So another reason that I chose this particular image to show you with is because she's got these wonderful swirls in her hair. And she's got very contrasty hair. So black hair this looks really great on dark hair colors. Okay, and then I'll come down here and I'll get these clavicles. And then just above the clavicle. So you've got this shadow. So you've got shadow, highlight, highlight, and then more shadow. I'll come over here and get the other clavicle. And you just want to follow the line and follow the grain of what you're doing. So here the bone is going from left and right across. And so you just follow the line. You don't want to do up and down here because the bone is going sideways. Whereas up here, the bone's going sideways, so you still want to go sideways. But here, the bone's going more diagonally, so you want to go diagonally. And on the nose is going vertically, so you want to go vertical. And another reason that I wanted to use this image was because of this really cute jean romper that she's wearing, and this technique looks really fantastic on jean material. So you also want to do this to clothes. Clothing looks really cool when you can bring out the texture in clothes. And so again, you're just finding those little highlight areas. So in the case of this image, my key light, as you can see from the catch light in her eyes, was just to the left of the camera and above her eye level. So that means that you'll see shadows falling, as you can see from her chin shadow, right? It's falling below and to the right. And so you sort of need to pay attention to that, because like here it's not really a highlight, but there's a deep shadow underneath. And so you're sort of making a little bit of a highlight. And so now we're just doing the contouring on the clothes to bring out the clothes. Because clothes are kind of important in fashion photography. Okay, that's a pretty good starter. So now I'm going to switch to black and start painting in black. Well, let me show you. Before I do that, let me show you what my dodge and burn layer looks like. This is this is the dodging part of my dodge and burn layer. And you can see I've brought out the cheeks and around the eyes and in the hair. Down here are the clavicles, and then down here are the dress. So we'll switch that back to soft light. And you can see the before and after. Now, it's a little heavy, but we'll take care of that in a little bit. So for now, we're going to switch and start painting in our black. So now pretty much wherever you've put a white mark, you want to put a black mark below it, corresponding to where the light would be. So here I brought out these highlights in these cheekbones. So here I'm going to add some shadowing and some contouring to bring out the cheekbones. I found, for me personally, it is very easy to go overboard on the cheekbones. So be careful of that. But you want to darken the eyebrows a little bit. Then you want to come in here and get the creases around the eyelashes. And you want to get right around the eyes, because it'll really help pull attention to your subject's eyes. Because essentially what you're doing is you're adding contrast to their eyes. And our eyes, as viewers, our eyes are drawn to areas of high contrast. So I'm darkening the lashes a little bit here. And then for the lips, I like to go around the inside edge of the lips. And that brings out the lips a little bit. You remember I put a little bit of white around the outside? So I like to go around the inside edge of lips and then the outside edge of the actual red of the lips, or pink, or whatever color your makeup artist went with. And then if you add a little bit of shadow to the shadow that's below the lips, it makes the lips look fuller. Alright, so that's pretty good for the face, and then we'll drop down here to the jawline. And adding some to the shadow down here really helps define the jawline really well. Okay, then I'll drop down here to the clavicle. So I hit that little crease above the clavicle and then hit the crease below the clavicle. Same on this side. And here, where it's like a really hard defined edge, you want to use a smaller brush. But here, where the shadow is more diffuse, you want to use a bigger brush. Okay, then you come down here, and you add a little bit of contrast to the shadows on the clothing. And you just same thing. You want to follow the line. You just want to follow the line of the clothes. So on skirts, where your creases are going to be more vertical, You want to go up and down. On the top, where the creases tend to be a little bit more horizontal, you move your brush horizontal. And so now I'm looking at it, and this line on the cheek looks really, really strong. So what I can do is you can actually switch back to white. I'm going to drop my opacity way down to like 50, 60. And then just lighten that up a little bit. And I'm going to switch it to black, because that line just looks a little strange to me. Oh, there's one other thing that I forgot to do. She doesn't particularly need it, but a lot of times if you go in, I'm going to bring my opacity back up to 100. She's got really defined that ring, that sort of dark ring right around the edge of the cornea. You'll want to hit that. Sorry, that was awful. But it just helps bring out the eyes a little bit. So now if you zoom out, oh wait, totally forgot to do the hair. So yeah, I wanted to bring out this highlight on the hair. So essentially what I'm doing is adding contrast. So I added my highlight, now I'm adding my shadow. So another thing that dodging and burning is really good for, if you look here, this is the edge of where her brush, when she was making this hairstyle. So this is actually her scalp showing through like the hard line of where her bangs meet the rest of her hair. And that, it can tend to sort of look a little bit like a bald patch, which it's not, but it can. And so we can minimize that by just going in and using our burning tool to darken that down. Now I'm just using the actual paintbrush here. There is actually a dodge and burn tool if you come down here, but for this technique I personally like using the paintbrush technique. Because then I don't need to worry about switching between tools and, you know, am I on the dodge tool or the burn tool? All I need to do is worry about whether I'm painting with black or painting with white. And I can switch between the two of them with one click of my keyboard. I use keyboard shortcuts a lot. The keyboard shortcut for switching between colors is X. So as you can see over here on the left, as I press X, it switches between black and white. Or it switches between, I should say, foreground and background color. Okay, so let's take a look at what this layer actually looks like. Okay. And then I'll switch it back to soft light. And then you can see before, after. So generally, I feel like the after image looks a little bit too much. So there's a couple of things. First thing, I would say is that this line along the jaw here looks a little bit sharp. So what I might do is I might grab my lasso tool, and I've got a feather of about 15 pixels, so I might just select this area, this white highlight here, and I might just go in and do filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And then I'll add a blur of, I'm going to do a Command H to hide the marching ants so I can sort of see what's happening a little bit better. And it's just going to blur that edge a little bit. Yeah, it's very subtle, but you can see it. And then the whole effect is a little bit strong for me, so I'm just going to select that layer and just drag my opacity down, probably down to about 80%. That's normally around about where I like it. The other thing you can do, because I'm a shortcut junkie, is if you select the layer and you hit, well, let me bring the opacity back up to 100%. If you just hit the 8 key, as you can see, it drops the opacity down to 80%. And 7 would drop it down to 70, etc. So because I'm a shortcut junkie, I tend to like to use the keyboard a lot. So now you can see the before and after on that. And you can just see, I would maybe even drop it down a little bit farther. Just you want your fingerprint, you don't want them to be able to see your fingerprint. So you want them, it's like if you can tell that lines have been drawn, then you need to drop your opacity. So you want it to be subtle. But you can see how it really helps define. It makes her look slimmer. If you look at her cheeks, it makes her face look slimmer and a little bit more angular, so it gives them that model look of kind of sharp features. And then you can also see down here, you can see what it's done to that clothing. Let me zoom out a little bit more. So you can see it's really helped define these wrinkles, which gives dimensionality to the clothing. So wrinkles aren't necessarily bad. You just want the wrinkles to work for you and not against you. In this instance, it helps define, the wrinkles help define her shape. And it's very flattering for her. So that's it. That's how I do my dodging and burning. So stay tuned next time. Leave me a comment. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm more than happy to share whatever I know, which sometimes I think isn't a whole lot, but there you go. And if you have any suggestions for upcoming tutorials, I would love to do that. I do eventually want to do a from beginning to end on a picture to show you guys everything about how I go through my process. But that's a big project, and I feel I need to work my way up there, so baby steps. Anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks for listening, and have a great day.